Alright, so we got number 1, and we've got a little more time on our hands on a smaller group so we can do some pronunciation and translation as well.
I'll do one. Genas kusen. Hoi. Matatai. Su. Ton. Apostolon. Kai. Aluisen. Auton. Ice. Ton. Wikon. Auton.
Wikon. And just so you know, for pronunciation in the future, this is a very difficult thing to get, but you see the mathetai there, it's the third word. The word that follows it, notice that it doesn't have an accent on it.
Yeah.
It's because it gets pronounced with a previous word. So it would be hoi matetaisu. Matetaisu. Yeah, so it gets pronounced all as if it's one word because it is the enclitic form as opposed to the form with emphasis.
Okay, now as the caveman translated, he got, they know the disciples of you, the apostles, and they lead him to the house of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's help the caveman out just a little bit.
Yeah.
Remember that the first question that we asked.
Can I pull the table up? Yeah.
The first question we ask in translation is what?
What's the verb? Or the subject?
Yeah, subject and the verb, those two questions go together because when we find our verb, it helps us to limit what might be our subjects as far as plural and singular might be concerned. But we'll look for our subject and what do we know about the subject? It can be in one of two different forms, not so far as case is concerned, but it can be an implicit subject or an explicit subject. And what do I mean by that?
Implicit would be within the verb. Explicit would be, we have a proper noun.
Right. So this would be within the verb, and this would be outside of the verb. It will be its own entity.
Okay.
Now, so far as the explicit subject, if it's going to be an explicit subject, what does it have to be? It has to be a couple of things. One, it has to be in the nominative case. All right? And the second thing it has to be is it has to agree with our subject in person and number. It's a very complex way of saying you went with the implicit subject instead of finding the explicit subject. So what might be the explicit subject, number 1?
The disciples.
Right. The disciples of you, as you translated it, or your disciples. So now it's not they know the disciples of you, it's your disciples know.
There's this train getting longer and longer. You find the boost and pull it back and put it in front of the verb. So it's your disciples know the apostles.
Or the apostle.
Oh, I'm sorry, the apostle. And they lead him to the house, and they lead him to their houses.
Good. Or not their houses, but
the houses of them.
Right, the house of them.
Yeah.
The house of them. So it would be
how that is.
Right. That's a little more complex when you have a plural possessive, but a singular noun. We want to say their houses, but it's just their house.
And he had into.
That's from ace.
Their house.
So ace would be in or into. Good. So your disciples know the apostle, and they lead him into their house.
Okay. He had your disciples know the apostle, and lead him into their house.
You could translate it, and they lead, or and your disciples lead. It's all included within the same subject. We have parallel verbs there, genoskusen and agusen. Number 2.
Okay. Didasco tus mukai lego tois tan logan tu theu. So I teach the sons, which is indicative of me in gender, and I speak to them, toys, which is them in the data, the word, accusative, Theu is God in genitive, so it's not God. So I teach my sons and I speak to them the word of God.
Good.
You said my son.
Mm-hmm. Or of me. It's the genitive of the first person pronoun.
Ego, Amy, doulas, ge, he, ho, kurios.
Be careful there in a couple of different places with the way you pronounce. You might translate the same way. It's su, not u. U is your negative. Su is your nominative, singular. And a, not he. He would be your.
Oh, that's a smooth breathing mark.
Yes.
Okay.
He would be your definite article, nominative, singular, the feminine. A, on the other hand, is your second person singular of the present active indicative. Amy, I am.
I am the servant that you are the Lord.
Good. Very good.
Okay. Hoi adelphoi, amon, adon, amas, kai, adomen, or adon,
Adon.
altus. The brothers, nominative. Amon is us in the genitive, so it's of us, it's of our brothers. Adon, had to look up and found that it was the aorist of Lepo.
Yes.
So it was simple past tense of C for the third person plural. So they saw amas, us, accusative, and a damen was the same thing, only in the first person plural. So we saw that. So our brothers saw us, and we saw them.
Yep. He was trying to overload you with pronouns there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one after another.
All right. 5.
Azed, ne, ho, kurios, atos, atas, es, ten, basileon, atom,
Autu.
autu. This one was tough. And the caveman came up with, will we be the Lord himself into the kingdom is. So taking what we discussed earlier, the nominative here is the Lord, ho, kurios. And because that atos next to kurios is the Lord himself, so the Lord himself will lead me into his kingdom.
Very good.
It throws me, Jacob, saying all these does that you just got to kind of toss over your shoulder when you kind of late.
Yes. The ones that you just ignore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they help for, your case. Yeah.
Mhm. So you saw that kurios autos is your intensive use of the autos. Specifically, it is
My Greek scholar, something.
very nice. So good. All right. We have 6 then.
All right.
Su plus seis, Anatan, Ego, Dad, Bledsoe, Zoe.
Sue is you, but 6 would be the future you will see. Then a ton, I translate it as dead things, but I noticed he did it differently.
Or just death.
Yeah, that's what I think.
This is a, thanatos is a noun, not an adjective. So if it were the adjective, you'd say dead things, but if it were, or a dead thing, but as a noun, it's just
Okay.
an abstract noun, death.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same for Zoe.
Zoe is also a noun.
Okay. That's what you've done then. The is but. Ego is I, but so I will see. Zoe life.
Good. You will see death, but I will see life.
Ho apostolos istos hoi de douloi ato kakoi.
Good.
The apostle is faithful, but his slaves are bad.
Good. So you have help on that one, or you get that one?
I caveman came, the apostle faithful, but slaves himself preach.
Good. Yeah. So you see there, the more technical way of describing that would be that the article is with your noun as opposed to the adjective,
Yeah.
which means that it's a predicate adjective as opposed to an attributive. So instead of being the faithful apostle, it is the apostle is faithful, but his servants are evil or bad. Very good. 8.
Sed, Edaman, Kai, Epamen, Zoe, Herbalin, Agape.
Very good.
Okay, so the set is you in accusative. Edaman is we saw. Kai's hand. A common is we spoke. Soy is you in the dative, so it's to you. Parabolin is parable, accusative, and pace is love in the genitive.
That's
So,
pearl.
which one? Parabol?
Paraboling, if it were plural, it would be parabolos.
So I got, we saw you and we spoke to you a parable of love.
Good.
Effugete ab Hemon ab Hemes edidaskomen en te ecclesia. Y'all fled from us
And his answer back there that may have threw you for a loop if you checked is, you fled from us, but we were still teaching in the church.
We kept teaching.
Or kept teaching.
Yeah, that should, the word for word was, y'all fled from us, but we were teaching in the church. So I didn't get that heavy mode, the third word of the sentence.
Hamon is from us. So, off Hamon. Off is,
From.
yep, it's from Apa. And then Hamon
Is us.
is us, yeah. It's the plural genitive form of Kalkos. The reason why he said kept teaching is, if you would reflect back on page 54,
Yeah.
you have the various different aspects that you can bring out in translation for the imperfect: progressive, customary, conative, inceptive. Inceptive would be I began to lose. Conative would be I tried to. Customary would be is I used to lose. Progressive would be I kept on losing, or I kept on teaching. And he just gets that from the context. So he says, you fled, but we continued what we were doing, which was teaching.
Are there different passes you make of these translations, or these translations become to English?
There are. You continue to make passes over the translation in order to get the broader context in mind. One of the things that we talk about in biblical scholarship or in Greek studies and any language study is that words do not mean words by themselves. Now they do. They have specific reference, but they have multiple reference. A $10 word would be there's polysamious. They have multiple meanings. But the only way that we get to know what the meaning is by the context. So we continue to read as we get a better context in mind, or a better framework for the paragraph that delimits or constricts the meaning. So yeah, you continue to read through. You say, well, what elements are at play in this particular structure, discourse structure, and then that informs how we translate.
Analytical spiral.
Yes. That would be another way of putting it. You know, you come to the text. Grant Osborne's hermeneutical book is called The Hermeneutical Spiral, and he says you come to the text as a reader. It informs how you read the text. It changes you. You go back to the text. You see it in a new light. It continues to change you until you continue to spiral down to closer to what the meaning actually is. So we did 1 through 9, and those were ones that you had an opportunity to prepare beforehand. So let's see how we're really sitting by translating a couple further.
All right.
Number 10.
Yeah. Not you, but.
No, that's right. Entice, Hamorize, Tice, Escatice, Jesus, Maxetus, Mathetas, Altu, Dice, Tane, Masalea.
Oh, nice.
All right, so aim, or N is in. Tice, Hamorize is the permit. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So wilderness,
Mhm.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Is that? Is it day? Oh.
Yeah, Hamara
They
is
are.
day, and wilderness is, oh goodness, a
Ah.
Mara,
it's understandable.
I think. Let me
I
check
think
that.
you're right. It is an epsilon.
It is an epsilon, it's just a question of whether or not I got the rest of the word right. Yeah, keep on working that out while I get the actual word for you.
Yeah.
This is the clause.
Right. So what kind of predicate versus title? This is articles with. So it's just,
I thought I had something wrong. All right, so it's eremos. Erema.
Seldom wrong, never in doubt.
all right, so we made our way through in the last days.
Good.
The, Jesus, yeah. Probably dropping that article in. Oxe is, that's gonna be past time, because I'm hearing this future time.
Yeah.
Because I'm hearing this sigma, that's why that.
So oxe is from ago. You hear the sigma, so the sigma plus the gamma is giving you that.
Right.
If it were in the aorist, it would be, no, sorry. You'd have your augment up front. The alpha changes to an eta. Gamma, alpha, gamma. This is third person, second person, so on S. God.
Those
On S and
will be
budgets. Agagas. I believe. But yeah, so it will lead, is will lead.
Tus mathetas is disciple. Tus is plural accusative, so disciples.
Mhm.
Now two is a pronoun. And that's third person singular genitive. So, yeah, so it's gonna be his disciples, translated. Base is into. Ain Basileia is the kingdom. And Cain is accusative. Okay, so here we have in the last days, Jesus will lead his disciples into the kingdom.
Excellent. All right, let's try one more, 11, and then we will move to chapter 10.
Huron hoi anthropoi ta tekna kai egagon auta eis tus oikus auto.
Good.
This looks like the men fled.
Not quite.
Anthropo?
So the min is right, but
Euro?
fled is
Euro?
fugo. What does, that is a rough reading there. Yeah, Huron, what is this from?
Heuristic, I find.
Yes,
Okay.
so that's from Heurisca.
Yeah, heuristic.
Okay, that's what it's from. And it is a what tense?
It is nominative,
No.
singular.
Tense. You're
Oh.
working off of declensions, which are for nouns. This is a verb.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Huron is from heurisco, and it's going to be, you see how changed this becomes?
Right.
It's going to be your aorist, active, indicative, and on can either be a first singular or a third plural, but we have them in as our subject, so it's your third plural.
Fled,
Found,
I'm sorry, been found.
that's all right.
Okay. And then the children,
Mm-hmm.
and auto is their children.
Good.
So the men fled from the children and,
Found there.
I'm sorry, found, they're fleeing and not.
It's all right.
Okay. Tell me how they got them. Yeah, fled. The men found their children and led them to their house.
Not two.
Ice
East is
into.
into there.
Okay.
And it's into their houses, tus, oikus. But
Men
otherwise.
found their children and led them into their houses.
Mhm. That wasn't too bad. Not for sight reading at least. Not bad at all. Go ahead and take a break, and then we'll come back to chapter 10. All right, let's start back up. We'll do chapter 10 tonight, and hopefully this won't put you to the breaking point for Hebrew. I mean for Greek. Now you've got my mind into Hebrew. All right, so we're going to work with luo again. It's our favorite word for conjugations. And today we're going to introduce the perfect and the pluperfect. Again with my English spelling. So what are the perfects and the pluperfects? Well, first of all, I do want to make a note. He says that there are three forms. The perfect, pluperfect, and the future perfect, but he only covers the perfect and the pluperfect here. And maybe my memory doesn't serve me, but I don't ever recall learning the future perfect. So don't trouble yourself too much about that. The perfect, your translation is going to be I have loosened. And the pluperfect is the past tense of that, I had loosened. Now, how do we go about doing this? It's actually kind of easy. And you'll see on your new charts that I've handed out that you have the perfect, the pluperfect included, as well as your pronouns from last week. But what we'll do for the perfect is we're going to add what's called reduplication. Plus our stem. Plus kappa, alpha, plus our secondary active endings. What exactly is reduplication? Reduplication takes the first letter of the stem of the verb, reduplicates it in front of, and adds a filler vowel. So for luo, our reduplication is going to be lu. sorry, no it's not, it's going to be let. Then we add our stem, lu. Then we add our kappa alpha. And just like the aorist, you have no ending other than the kappa alpha. So leluka,
I have loosened.
I have loosened. Second singular, le, the reduplication, plus your stem, lu, plus your kappa alpha, plus the ending you've already learned, secondary active, sigma. Leluka, lelukas, and we'll just keep on doing that down. Le is your reduplication. Lu is your stem. Kappa, and you know what happened in your aorist for the third person, right? It loses the alpha, and instead you have N. Same for our plurals. We'll just go ahead and put the le all the way down. Then we add our stem, lu, kappa alpha, all the way down. And then our secondary active endings, min, ta, or te rather, and then sin.
Just for nomenclature,
Sure.
the imperfect active and the aorist active are both second active?
Yes, they all use the secondary active endings.
Okay.
Almost everything does. Future and the present are the only ones that use the primary active endings.
Okay.
How's this sitting with you?
So, oh, is
What now?
loose? You had loosened. Is that the same as loose?
Yes. Sorry.
So he has loosed. You know, it's striking me too how weird English is too. This Greek, I was thinking about that word deacon. And the feminine is deaconess. And the plural, that is deaconesses. And then the possessive of the plural is deaconesses. You know, so I guess I have no pride to throw stones.
Yeah.
That's a Greek language.
How is I have loosed different than I loosed?
Well, what the perfect does is it is, as he says, one of the most significant exegetically speaking. In our study of the Greek verb, we have thus far considered three of its principal parts. Notice that the perfect tense is obtained by, where does he talk about this?
Where are you?
I'm still on the first page. In the box at the top, he says, often called the most exegetically significant of the Greek tenses, the perfect appears in three forms: perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect. By far the most common form is the perfect, because the New Testament often draws a sharp distinction between the perfect and the other tenses. Mastery of the perfect is essential. Where does he says this? He talks about the significance of the perfect tense on page 74. 5 in my book. Paragraph 72. The Greek perfect refers to a state resulting from a completed action. As such, the temporal focus is often more on the present than on the past, though the perfect depicts action that is already completed. So a sound filled would be the aorist, the whole house, versus you have filled Jerusalem with your teaching. So it has present consequences. So he has risen would be a perfect in the Greek. And it has implications for today. So he has risen happened in the past, but it is still true now.
Versus he rose.
Right. That just looks at the action as a whole. With nothing to, it places the emphasis on the verb itself, but on nothing else. It's past action. Now, you also have Jesus saying from the cross, it is finished, and that is the perfect as well. It has been completed now. He's speaking with reference to everything that's happened past tense, but with future consequences, or present consequences. Okay, so on page 74 or paragraph 70, continuing on there are a couple of things about the perfect that we need to take note of. One is with aspirated stems. Take therapua, for instance. We might think that when we reduplicate, we would reduplicate the theta, right? It's the first letter. So we would have therapua. But the tendency in language is towards simplification. They don't like two aspirated consonants next to one another. So it gets reduced down to te, therapua. That happens with the theta, the phi, and the chi. This seems weird to us, but we have the same thing in English. Pronounce that. Right. We pronounce it amphitheater, right? Why do we not pronounce it amphitheater?
We don't like the th.
Right, we don't like the th and the th being combined together. So we, in essence, pronounce it amphitheater.
So that's an aspirated stem.
It's two aspirated consonants next to each other. We don't like to pronounce it like that, so we simplify amphitheater. They do the same thing. It's not going to be therapua, it's te. And that actually wouldn't happen anyway because I haven't conjugated it fully. But te, as opposed to the. So that happens with
It's called reduplication, right?
theta,
Redundant, by the way.
phi, and chi.
So the theta is going to turn into a tau. Phi is going to turn into a P.
It will. And then what does the key turn into? That, I think, let's see. I'm not entirely certain. I would expect it to turn into either a kappa or a rough reading mark.
Okay.
Be one of those two. I'm not sure.
Where are we?
So we're still on number 1 of the like things to note.
Oh, okay.
So a phi key or phi, theta, or key. And we're wondering what a key turns into. I don't know if I've seen it all that often, to be honest. So what that process is called is deaspiration. Then you have double consonants, psi, zeta, or xi. If the verb stem begins with a double consonant or with two consonants other than a consonant plus lambda or rho, then the reduplicating syllable is simply an epsilon. So gnosko becomes egnoka. That's a little more complicated because gnosko we think there is no double consonant here, which is what he's talking about. But in reality, gnosko is coming from gna. So now we do have that double consonant that is not with a lambda or a rho, which means we don't reduplicate the gamma. Instead, we just put an epsilon in front of it. We keep our stem, egg, no, ka. You can go through that process to get there and explain it. Or you could just say, here's a kappa alpha, which is characteristic of my perfect. And I have an epsilon here. I don't know why there's not reduplication, but I do have that kappa alpha. And stick your hat on that and know that it's perfect. Or you could just memorize this is your fourth principal part, as it's called. The fourth principal part is perfect. Fourth principal part of gnosko is your gnoka. And then, finally, if you have a word, petoi magzo, for instance, that begins with a vowel, same thing that happens in the aorist tense happens in the perfect, which is it becomes a longer form, which he calls the temporal augment, et, toi, mags.
That's,
It's supposed to be a zeta, but that's not really going to be a zeta because it combines with the kappa, and then zeta, and it just becomes a kappa.
the original form, before the vega.
Hetoi magzo. That's a zeta.
Oh,
Or at least it is supposed to be.
okay. I draw my little nose.
So those are your exceptions for your perfect. And then we have our second perfects, just like your second aorists. And this is simply to say that some verbs don't contain your kappa alpha.
Like, head toy bond doesn't have the alpha.
No, hetoi mach does.
Where's the alpha?
This was a shorthand way of saying this is the base form before your ending.
Base one.
So I'm sorry I didn't do that. So for the first singular it would be he toi mach. But leaving that blank was just a way of saying this is, yeah.
So what's your question?
Not a question, just a statement. Your second perfects will lack your kappa. So just like some forms will lack your reduplication, gnosko, other forms will lack your kappa, but you will have the reduplication. So you'll have one of those two different features. You'll either have reduplication or you will have a kappa alpha to identify it as perfect. There are also specific forms, just like your second aorists, that you'll just have to memorize because they're a little irregular. And he has those in your vocabulary. You don't have any new vocabulary this week. You've had a break on vocabulary for 2 weeks now. You just have to know your principal part.
I feel broken.
He has a chart there on page 75, or paragraph 71, which is akuo turns into akeka'a, patho becomes pepoitha, pimpo becomes pepampha, and pasco becomes pepantha. And be very careful there, because patho looks a lot like pasco in your perfect tense. Pepoitha versus pepantha.
"21 verbs containing second perfect forms."
Mm-hmm. Not a great deal.
I hear.
And just so that you're aware of it, you have your pluperfect, which is the most rare form of a verb that you will see in the New Testament. Well, it may not be the most rare. It's between that and the optative mood. I wonder which one occurs more, the all verbs in the optative mood or the pluperfect. They're wild beasts in the jungle of the New Testament. You very rarely catch a glimpse of them. As a matter of fact, I don't even think my professor taught me the pluperfect. Which is bad because when I do come across them on that very rare occasion, it's kind of confusing because it looks like another form. That is bad because that looks like it's all underneath pluperfect. All right, so the pluperfect is not altogether painful or painless. It's very similar to the perfect. All we do is we add an epsilon in front of our reduplication. Then we have our stem. And then we have our kappa. And here's where it gets a little tricky. Instead of the alpha of the perfect, we get A. So we have the augment, our reduplication, our stem. We'll just go ahead and do all the way through. Our kappa all the way through. Our A all the way through. And we just give it our secondary active endings. Nu, sigma, honest. And although that is without, in order to distinguish it from the first singular. So ein, ace, a, amen, eta, ason. And I will give you permission to not worry too much about the pluperfect. Just know that your pluperfect has your augment plus reduplication plus stem plus kappa plus a plus second active endings. You get that really, you should be able to identify these.
I made a mistake, I looked up the word boost. And the first one I came up with was Matthew 18:18, and to tell you the truth, whatever you find on heaven will be down in heaven, whatever you loose on earth will be loose in heaven. And I get Leilumena.
See? You've got a participle. Don't worry about those.
That was a mistake, but okay.
Illumina. Yeah. Participles are fun. Okay. Pluperfects. I'm not sure how many he has in here. I'm hoping that he doesn't overload you with them. That's the chapter for the most part. The very last thing you need to know is oida. So we've had a couple of verbs that have been altogether annoying. Those verbs are Lego, which becomes what nearest? Doesn't really become it, it's another word, but it's associated with Lego. A con. And then we have blepo, which is a don. Now we have gnosko, which is oida. And that's right there. He gives you the verb oida. Because of its frequency in the New Testament Greek, 321 occurrences, the verb oida, I know. A synonym of gnosko deserves special attention. This verb only has perfect and pluperfect forms, but these are used with present and past meanings. For purposes of parsing, oida is regarded as present tense, and eidane as imperfect tense. So be familiar with that chart. Oida, oidas, oidin, oidamen, oidate, oidas.
So technical, these are annoying verbs.
Yes. Yeah, that is the technical classification. They are the annoying verbs that will become so familiar to you that they will cease to be annoying. You'll just be like, that's that. Exactly. Biomanic. All right. And that's the chapter. So how about we indulge ourselves in a little more pain? Exactly. And I will start us off. How about that? Man, it's like 8. We get through a lot of material very quickly with a smaller number.
Susan already cried.
All right, so number 1, ake ka'amin, tain aletheon. So ake ka'amin is going to be, you flip over to the previous page, or no, it's on that same page. It's on that same page. It is from ake ka'a under section C. It's a second perfect active indicative from akuo. We have the min ending, which tells us it is what person and number?
First, plural.
Good. So translating that, it would be Anyone else? Good, we have heard, then tain aletheia. Very good. We have heard the truth. All right, number 2.
Oh, let me try. Okay, it was annoying how I had to write it out. Translate. Should be about 1 second. I was agape. Okay. So translate God, love, hati. Forgot what that was.
Hati is that or because. Start with ekendo kamen.
Egg, no comment. We have known that the Lord loves us.
Not where are you getting us from?
Estin is. Estin is.
You got the paradigm right.
Yeah, them.
Not them.
No, you. He. She. It.
What,
I don't know.
what were you saying? You said
Hell, I've got. I am.
yes. You said
You are.
Estin is from
Estin.
Amy.
Yeah.
Now you did. Amy means what?
I am.
I am. So Estin is the third singular.
Right. Oh,
So
he is.
He is.
Good.
So we have known that Patheos agape estin.
That God is love.
Perfect.
So that Estin is another one we chuck out of the English translation. We have known that God is love.
Why did estin is? What do you mean?
Oh, that's
now?
the is of the is. Okay.
Mhm. Now you could have omitted that, right? You could have omitted estin and it still mean the same thing, because you have Patheos agape.
Okay, because the caveman
No.
out of this is we
No,
have
you
known
can-
that God love He is.
So, yes,
Yeah.
God love He is. That'd be one way of doing it, but we have estin, which can be either an implicit or an explicit verb,
Right.
or a verb with an implicit or an explicit subject. Our explicit subject is theos. We know that because the article with theos. So God is love as opposed to love is God.
Why couldn't we leave out Estin?
We couldn't because, and I was about to say that we could, but we have 2 nouns there instead of a noun and adjective. If love was an adjective, then we could have left it off. But love is a, beloved is an adjective, but love is a noun. Number 3.
Okay.
Don't be too stressed. This is a comfortable environment.
Yeah.
So, take it. You have the greatest hits.
That, I have a question about that. Make no comment.
Mm-hmm.
Is that perfect or pluperfect?
It is your perfect. If it were pluperfect, we'd have Cayman.
Okay.
So you have the kappa alpha as opposed to kappa iota.
Right.
I mean epsilon iota.
Okay.
But I can see, and you would also have no, that's right.
I started thinking down that track because of that epsilon.
Mhm.
Okay. But that's just part of the. Yeah.
Well, remember gnosko is from gna, and gamma nu is a double consonant that does not involve a lambda or a rho. So it's not going to reduplicate the gamma, it's just going to take the augment as opposed to reduplication. But what tells us it's the perfect as opposed to the pluperfect is the kappa alpha, not the kappa epsilon iota.
Okay, so that epsilon is actually still added on, but it's not the
Pluperfect.
perfect
Mhm.
epsilon.
And that's where it gets a little bit tricky, is because of those 4 different subpoints that he has underneath the perfect.
Okay, number 3. Have this do common, kati, su, pe, ha, adios, hagias, to, they.
Good.
Okay, take this one word at a time. Have this do common is going to be from faith. We've got kappa alpha, so it's going to be perfect. Duplication. And it's amen, so it would be we have believed.
Mhm.
That's one word. Yeah, that's the biggest word. Hati is that. Su is you in the opposite.
Mhm.
Okay. A is, I don't know.
Amy, A, Eston, Esmin.
You are.
Mm.
Thank you. The Hagios is the holy, and that's nominative. It's nominative, but it's an adjective, which means that it's a substantive title.
Good. So no noun to go with.
Guess that from the context.
Mhm.
To Theo is of God, so we have believed that you are the Holy One of God.
Very good. Now notice here, we had a couple of weeks ago a question about
Where did you get one because of the two theo, the genitive? The
No.
Holy One is from agios. Okay, that's what you're going. The Holy One, and the two theo is the genitive, so the Holy One of God.
Yep. Good.
Okay.
Number 4. I'm glad you interrupted me because I was about to put my foot in my mouth and trying to explain something when it's not actually here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I'm actually thanking you. I was going to say something stupid.
Well, I can take the slack.
You're doing great. Number 4.
Okay. Eklias. Lelukate ton lulon kai pepom date auton eis tein ekle Sion.
Good. Sion.
Lelu, so kate is the perfect. Te would be the second person plural. So you have loosed.
Good.
You have loosed the slaves on, so it's nominative.
No, it's
Or actually, I'm not nominative. The slaves have loosed, and Pepo,
you had it right to begin with. You have loosed the slave.
why would the slaves be because it's an nominative, so it's the subject?
It's not. Ton is your accusative.
Okay. you have to know that from context?
No, you,
How did you get that from the accusative?
well, so you have,
On,
you're looking at the wrong paradigm. On can be the nominative or the accusative of the neuter second declension, right? But doulon is from what vocabulary word?
doulos.
Doulos. And what is this is your lexical form, and what is this? Os.
That is a nominative.
It is the nominative, but what gender?
That's masculine.
Masculine. So we know that on is of the neuter, but this is a masculine noun, so it's got to be the nominative. On has got to be the accusative, because on is not a nominative ending for the masculine. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Actually, I couldn't tell my epsilon from a dude.
And the article helps us as well, right?
It does.
Yeah.
We have ton, and that disambiguates it for sure, because if it were the nominative, it would either be ta or it would be ha. Also, your verb is second person plural, not third singular, which would be what it would, which would be required if doulos was your subject.
And auton, just to make it his, auton is his, or, but I'm stuck on the pepamate.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. You have loosed
The slave.
the slave, and
I need a lexicon.
all right, so that is from Patho. You remember Patho?
Yeah.
I have. Oh no, it's not from Patho. I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
from Pimpo.
As you said.
Mm-hmm.
I said.
Good.
So, and you have sent him into the church.
Very good. Perfect.
Thank you. Got me over the hump on that. I couldn't tell what that word was. Can you run that through the formula for me?
That one is one of your second perfects, and it doesn't really have much of a formula.
Yeah, to memorize.
Yeah, it's a memorized one because it's from Pimpo. And we do have the reduplication, pep, but then all of a sudden, for some reason, the epsilon becomes an omicron, the mu stays, but all of a sudden the p becomes a phi.
Do you memorize these like by that sound of pip? And I could see the P or the P, the moo, and the the P and the moo. Keeps me thinking pip.
Yes, and that might help you.
It's like my error earlier between day and desert. I
Yeah.
see that could be a thing.
For this one, I mean, that helps, but only so far. I think that it would be better to memorize those. And I'm even a little shaky on those because I thought that it was from Patho just now.
You saw the theta, not the theta, but you saw the phi.
Yeah, I saw the theta or the phi, and I thought of it as being from Patho for some reason, and that was just wrong. And it's entirely understandable that you don't know that right now because we've just now learned this material. Number 5.
Okay.
We're just doing the best we can with what we've got.
Digraphamen, Vadus, Ali, Deas, Diantane, Agapain, Daemon, Huper to Apostolos.
Good.
Gegraphamen is perfect from to right, and it's first person plural, so So is it working as we've written truthful?
Truth is a noun, correct? I'm gonna check that really quick because I'm working through this as well. It is a noun, so that means that you would need to reevaluate what aletheos is.
So, pretty sure it's from true.
You've got all that, right?
Accusative, not accusative, oh, okay, it's gotta be, okay, genitive,
Yes.
singular, good.
Couldn't even write the word before you figured it out. So it's not truthful
Why is
words.
it genitive singular? The masculine noun is singular.
What now?
Why is it not masculine noun is singular?
Because you're sounding, you're hearing the sound, which is the same os and os, but it's the difference between an omicron and a.
No, I mean the ending alpha and sigma.
What now?
Don't I have it as the alpha sigma first declension masculine?
No. Your masculine, for one thing, is your second declension, and your nominative singular for the masculine is os, omicron sigma.
You see what I'm saying? Masculine and alpha sigma masculine. So that the first declension for the.
I don't know.
Take a look here.
Should I have written it down?
Right. Yeah, that's right. Well,
Under your second declension,
yeah.
masculine, singular, nominative is os.
Yeah, I'm told that. I think it was the, I'll find it later. It was a part of the chart, there was, the first declension for the feminine, there was the mid, the eta, the alpha,
Mhm.
and then there was the alpha sigma endings for the masculine.
No, those aren't for the masculine. That's just the alpha, a pure alpha for the first declension. And it can be either, os can be either your accusative, plural, feminine,
Yeah.
or it can be your genitive, singular, feminine.
I keep this stuff on, so I'm tired of talking.
36.
There are 112 masculine nouns in the first declension.
Ah, yes, that is a masculine noun of the first declension. Os is your nominative ending. Good catch there.
So
It will. You're not entirely crazy, but it can't be that because alethe. I think that one thing that is very difficult to do in any language that actually distinguishes between gender
Yeah.
is memorizing your lexical form. And well,
That's what I was
with Greek,
digging for.
yeah, with Greek it's easier than most of the other languages because it is uniform, almost uniform, where the endings are all feminine, neuter, or masculine. But we have to keep our gender in mind of the lexical form in order to help us with which paradigm applies in which situation. So aletheos is aletheia. It's from aletheia.
Okay.
And that ah ending is a feminine ending.
Okay, so it's pure alpha, so,
Right.
okay.
An os ending for a noun, like doulos,
Right.
is masculine, and an on ending, like ergon,
But in this case, since it's us, it'd be genitive.
Right.
First person singular.
Not first person singular, but feminine genitive singular.
Right, so
Yeah.
first declension first.
Yes. Yes.
That's what I call
And we, it is very, very difficult to keep those categories separate, especially with terminology overlapping and everything else, but keeping the verbs separate from the nouns.
it. It probably says this, we have read words of truth.
And then finish up there.
In the accusative is on account of.
Because of or on account of.
The one accusative. Mon is genitive, plural, first person pronoun. So it's of us. So it's going to be our love. Prepare is prepare. Is that a preposition?
It is. With the accusative, it is above or over, but with the genitive, it is for.
Okay. So to apostolou is genitive. So prepare is for the apostles.
And for the apostle.
Yeah.
All right, so put it all together.
Okay, so we have read the words of truth on account of our love for the apostle. Oh, singular. All right.
6.
Hepon, ben, ho, messias, kai, egnoke, thanatos. Easy ones are the Messiah and
Pepanthen is from Pasco, which means, do you remember?
okay, the Messiah suffered
Good.
and egnoke, is known death.
Good. So the Messiah has suffered and he has known death.
Has suffered.
Good. Doing fine. 7.
Bing! You hear the bell?
Steve just tapped you in.
Yeah. There's doulos, tone, piston, anthropon, eleukes, hati, su, ace, agathos. Tus doulos is plural servants. Us is I should know this. Accusative. Tone, piston, the it's either faith or faithful.
Pistos means faith and it is an adjective.
Okay. It's probably
Well, let me switch fund divorce.
yeah. Tone Pistone. I'm just gonna parse it. It's genitive plural.
Don't forget your word after that.
Microphone. So that genitive plural. So we have the servants, accusative, and a faithful that
Mhm.
so far. Okay. LA Lou case is.
Parse for me. See if you can get it.
Without looking?
Yeah, without
You have the
looking.
faithful men here, you have the servants and the faithful men.
So right now, what we've
We
got
don't have the
is,
faithful servants.
we have not the faithful servants, we have the servants of the faithful men.
Okay, servants, slaves of the faithful men.
Mhm. And then we gotta find our verb,
Okay, there's a verb in there somewhere.
elelu case,
LA Lou case.
and I want you to parse that.
It's gotta be pluperfect.
Why?
Epsilon.
Good.
Yoda.
Good. So you got your epsilon augment, your reduplication, your stem, then you have your kappa, you have your epsilon iota, which is characteristic of the pluperfect. Perfect.
And it's loose, and ace is second singular. So you lose. Hati is.
You had.
Tablets, yeah.
Yeah, two, pluperfect has two past tenses.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
had
so what was, Jake, tell me again, what was the key for this pluperfect?
the augment,
Okay,
which is the epsilon, the reduplication, which is the lambda epsilon.
Okay.
Then you have
What was
your,
the perfect though, yeah.
when
This from the perfect, what would, how would?
you would drop the epsilon,
Okay.
the epsilon iota, that for the case wouldn't be at there, it would be cos. It would be lelu cos.
Okay.
Instead we have elelu case.
Yeah, that would case.
Easy for me to say.
Okay. Had loose.
All right, so you had loosed. What was loosed?
That you ace.
You got, see, here's where you have to take note of your accenting. If that were ace or the, it would be taste, actually, for one thing.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's ace. We would need to take note of our accenting when we get to relative pronouns for that. But you haven't learned those. Any guesses?
Ace.
Maybe move beyond ace and take a look at the rest of the context. Maybe you'll be able to come up with it.
Agathos is good in the nominative.
But you have another word there before the ace, right?
Oh, Sue. So,
Get it?
I ran to the personal pronouns, I'm not fine.
well, Sue is,
Yeah, ace. White flags coming up.
I know it's getting late. And we should have been done already. All right, so let's translate the first clause. Because I think that what's tripping us up may be the way that we translated the first clause. The first one is, this is our what? Well, let's start over here. We have our verb. Is there an external subject? Circle our verb.
Yeah,
Is there?
I believe so.
That would run a little
Would that
long.
be anthropoid?
No. Okay, so tous doulos is what?
The slaves.
Yes?
In the
Slaves.
genitive.
Nah, this is tone, pistone, antithrone is our genitive. This modifies tous doulos, which is our direct object, right? It's the accusative, direct object. Tous doulos. Now, the question is, what do we do with hati, su, ace, agathos? All right? But maybe if we translated this out, we would know a little bit better. So if we translated this out, it would be you had loosed, right? For your pluperfect of luo. You had loosed the servants of the faithful men. Then we have, and this is a device for what's called clausal analysis, hati su ace agathos. Now hati can be used in two different ways, right? It can be used for that, like I know that you are good. Or it can be used as because. So that is an explanatory, it just gives you the content. Or it is a subordinate gives you a conjunction. And subordinate conjunctions introduce what are called subordinate clauses. Here is your independent clause. This depends on it. This is your dependent clause. So you had loosed the servants of the faithful men, and then this provides the reason for the loosing because su ace agathos translated. You
Are.
not quite, but very, so very close.
Is, you is a
Go ahead and finish that.
Good.
Good. All right. So if I wanted to say R, it would have been A. But we have ace, which is A is present, ace is imperfect. So, because you were good.
Do we have these yet?
You have.
Which one was it?
That was when we introduced the imperfect.
Yeah.
I probably should add the conjugation of me on that sheet, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Word.
So it might be helpful to review page 55, the imperfect indicative of me. Yeah, we're already about 10 minutes over, so you are free to leave and with haste.